Let's start talking today about another critical principle that I believe that is foundational to us in our attempts to understand each other and develop relationship things. And this is one of the core places to start your learning at when you're trying to learn the dynamics that are going on in any relationship that you deal with. So that it's like I've said before, these principles apply in marriages, they apply with your children, they apply in your business relationships, in your work where you have to deal with people all the time. These are pertinent everywhere that you go. So I want to talk about this one today. It's a fairly common principle. Most people have heard about it, and a lot of people have even read different books about it. But most people never really delve into it to the point that they begin to understand how this principle really works in your lives. And I'm telling you, if you'll get serious about getting the information and getting it worked into your conscious understanding of things, it's just going to make a huge difference, because you'll be able to see where somebody's coming from. And you'll understand, oh, now I get why they see this differently than I see this. And this idea, this principle is the idea that we each have our own unique personality style. And there really are, it depends on which books you read. There's literally dozens of books out there on this subject. I have a couple of favorite ones. Those are one called Personality Plus by a lady named Florence Littauer, and another one called Positive Personality Profiles by Dr. Robert Rome. And I really like these books. They teach some fantastic ideas. Each of them approaches it from a slightly different angle. And actually, the more that I've studied, I've probably read 4 or 5 different ones on the subject myself. And each one of them contributes some different pieces of understanding to it. But what's important for us to understand is there's, according to most accounts, most people who have authored books about this, there's basically 4 different general personality styles. And then there's lots of variations and combinations of those. But in 10 minutes, I'm not even going to be able to hit the high points of this hardly. But I want to encourage you to go out and either get the books that I just talked about, or come to our websites and get our CDs and the things that we've produced about it, so that you can delve into this and start beginning to understand this deeply enough that you can let it be impactful, and that it becomes a part of your blueprint, so that you start operating with a correct understanding of the correct principle here. So basically, personality styles are divided into they're divided 2 different directions. And the first direction is, think about this for yourself. Am I more outgoing, or am I more reserved type of person? And a lot of you are going to say, well, I'm really a lot of both. I'm not quite sure which one. Well, think deep enough, because Dr. Rome says nobody is exactly evenly divided. You're not 50-50. You'll be at least 51-49. So pick which one you most are. And then dividing in the other direction, am I more task-oriented, or am I more people-oriented? Is getting the job done more important to me than dealing with people and making sure I have happy relationships with everybody? Or am I more about doing the task? So you can divide yourself, task and people, and outgoing and reserved. And by doing the 51-49 thing, you're going to find that you are more here and more over here, maybe. Or you're more here and more down here. And obviously you're going to have to get some books that have got charts and stuff drawn out on them. And I'm not going to go into that right now, which one you specifically are. But what's important to understand is that there are different personality types, and we are all at least dominant in one category with a strong helping of another one a lot of the time. There are very few people that are really totally in one category or the other. There are some, but not a lot. There are other people, like myself, for instance. I am actually about 25% of each one. And so that has some interesting dynamics in and of itself. But we got to figure out where we're at. And then it's important for us to figure out where the other person in the relationship that we're dealing with is at. And because each of those things is going to have some determining factors in our blueprint, how we each see subjects and how we approach subjects and things like that, and how the same stimulus can elicit a different response from each one of us that doesn't make sense to the other person unless we understand they're a different personality style. And when we start to understand that, then we can say, oh, now I get that you perceive things differently than I do. And the critical piece to understand of this is there is no one best personality style. Now there are some, if you fall in certain categories of this, you're going to think that yours is the only way. It's my way or the highway, and anybody else that doesn't do it my way is stupid, ignorant, or lazy. And the reality is that we have to understand that each one of us, each of those personality styles has strengths and we have weaknesses. And this world and every relationship, especially every marriage relationship, needs as many of those strengths and weaknesses brought together in it as they can in order for it to be the strongest possible relationship, to be the most effective. For instance, especially in a marriage, you're going to find that opposites tend to attract. So the husband will be one style and the wife will be a completely different style. And that actually is what attracts us together at first when we're dating and courting. But over time, those little things that we thought were cute and fun and thing about the other person can actually become irritating and annoying because they're around all the time and we don't fully understand them and they don't make sense to us. Why don't you think the same way that I think? And how come you don't have the same ideas that I have? And you're just dumb, you're annoying, you're stupid, whatever. And we tend to let that then just grind on us and wreck the relationship. When, if we start to begin to understand these principles and we dig into understanding how the other person thinks, all of a sudden we go, oh, I understand that you don't see this the same way I do. And since I know that there's not one or the other better personality, that you have strengths and that I don't have and weaknesses that I don't have, that it's okay, that it's good, that I can now say, oh, I can start trying to begin to understand because I can study these personality style ideas, that I can say, oh, now I understand why she approaches this thing totally different than I do. And it really changes the dynamic in your relationship a bunch. And that's why we use that as the one of the first underlying principles that we teach. Personalities are different. And if we don't understand them, then it can be a giant source of frustration and irritation and conflict in our lives. And if we do understand them, they can become a great equalizer, a great smoother outer of things so that we can begin to work together. And I might be going down this road. Let's say I'm at work and I'm in my employment and we're working on a project. I have a team of people working on a project and I'm out there and I'm the guy, I'm really a creative type person. I'm the idea guy. I can come up with lots of good stuff. But what I need is an organizer who works with me to make sure all the ducks are lined out in a row. And then I need a driven, go-getter, accomplishing person to make sure that all the steps of the project get carried through to the end and done the way that they're supposed to. And then I also need somebody who's a great promoter so that our work doesn't get wasted because none of us are good at promoting it so that it becomes useful to the world out there. And so it's really important to us when we begin to start understanding that we can cut other people some slack. See, in that work case scenario, for instance, it would be real easy for me to look at the person who's the organizer and say, they're just a drudge, they're not creative, no imagination, nothing. We don't even need them around here. But if I understand the difference, that no, they have strengths that are critical to the success of my team, I might be able to come up with a great idea, but I'm not a great organizer. And if our project isn't organized so that we have all the supplies we need and production works correctly and shipping goes on from there to get it where it needs to go, then we don't accomplish what potentially could be accomplished just by my creative coming up with things. And we have to be able to learn to look at the strengths and weaknesses of all the people in our relationships in order to to grasp the full strength of what we're doing. And this works especially true, it's even true with our kids. When we start realizing that each one of our kids has a different personality style, that's when we realize that we can't apply the same set of rules and principles all the way across the board and expect the same results with each kid. So that's about personality styles. Talk to you later. Bye.